Okay, physiology. So I thought I'd do a little helpful video for your formed elements lab that I was talking about today in regards to recognizing diseases through a CBC and through a Chem panel. And we did it in class, and I'm not sure we all got it. So I decided, since we already had the BP8 on Zoom, I decided, well, then I'll do a helpful one for your formed elements lab. And this is your, for this particular class, this is your extra credit questions. And so I was thinking about how I could show this to you a little bit better than how I had previously. I thought of some pictures. Making some pictures here. So here you go. Some helpful pictures. All right, so we'll do the Chem panel first here. I said that if contents of cells were in the blood when they shouldn't be at high levels, it means that cells are being damaged and losing those substances, those chemicals, those enzymes are coming out of the cell like this. Let's say the liver cells, so this is liver cells, hepatocytes. They've got enzymes in them. AST, the enzyme, the ALT enzyme, among others. Alkaline phosphatase. Those enzymes are in liver cells. So now if you've got something like hepatitis, or liver cancer, hopefully not, or cirrhosis, well, that's going to be fun to spell. Cirrhosis of the liver, that's a fibrotic liver, scarred liver, damaged liver. If you've got any of those that are damaging liver cells, hepatocytes, let's even say that. Let's put hepatocyte. This is a hepatocyte. It's a liver cell. It's being damaged by one of these diseases. So then these enzymes are coming out of the cell and they end up in the blood. And so they're going to be in the blood at higher levels than normal. That's simple. You take a Chem panel and you see elevated AST, ALT, alkaline phosphatase, and there's another one, but I didn't talk about it. It's liver disease. So then you put it together with other symptoms. You know, say you've got a person that's been exposed to hepatitis. They got a poke of some sort. They've got a fever. They're jaundiced, but they have some sort of exposure maybe to hepatitis, from some kind of exposure to hepatitis. That's why they're there. They're worried about it. So there's some of the other. So you've got these enzymes high in the blood. You find them with a fever, a low-grade fever. They're a little bit jaundiced, maybe, depending on how far along the hepatitis is. And upon verbal examination, you find that they had some kind of exposure to a person who had hepatitis or a finger poke or something. What else would we see with hepatitis? Well, they would do other tests, but this would be the beginning. Cancer wouldn't have a fever. They wouldn't have a fever. They would have these elevated enzymes. They would have some other problems, though, of course. You'd have to take a scan to really know if it was cancer or not, but you would see this. Cirrhosis, they wouldn't have a fever either. And if it's extreme, they'd be jaundice, but no fever. Oh, maybe upon talking to them, you find that they drink a lot of alcohol. How do you spell alcohol? Alcohol. Goodness sakes. I think it's an O. Anyway, so now, so they've got a history of alcohol. How much do you drink per week, sir? Oh, 3 or 4 glasses of wine a day. How many years you've been doing this? Maybe 20 years, 15, 10 even, maybe, or more. There you go. Now, of course, you're going to do scans and tests and so forth. But for us, our little doctoring extra credit questions, I mentioned they're a little bit jaundiced. They've got elevated enzymes there. They have a history of drinking alcohol. How about this? Let's say an organ. So this would be high levels of something in the blood. High serum levels of these, right? High serum. What's another way we could have high blood levels of something? Well, if an organ normally excretes something and then it's damaged, so it can't excrete it. So then it's going to end up in the blood, huh? If it can't excrete it, it's going to be left in the blood. So the liver excretes bilirubin in kind of a complicated pathway. Liver takes blood bilirubin and puts it into bile, excretes it, it processes it, and excretes it in the bile into the intestines. I'm going to need a new pen. Let's imagine that the liver is damaged. Now, it's got cirrhosis, so it's working halfway. So now it's not taking all that bilirubin from the blood that's there. It comes from breakdown of red blood cells. Taking the bilirubin out of the blood and excreting in the body, it's not doing enough of that. So a lot of that bilirubin is remaining in the blood, and it's a yellowish color, and the person is going to end up, with jaundice. And then you're going to see an elevated bilirubin test on your Chem panel. Right? Your Chem panel comes from the blood, right? Chemistry of the blood. And you're going to see an elevated bilirubin. Now, whatever else is damaging the liver you're going to probably see that problem too. You're going in conjunction with this. Well, an elevated bilirubin thing could be a liver problem. It's not excreting it like it should. The other thing, let's say that, the kidney does excretion too. Now, you probably didn't ever think of that the liver did excretion. It does. It puts materials, it takes materials out of the blood, puts materials into bile, delivers the bile to the intestines, and excretes things out through the digestive system. Out in your feces. So you see. Now the kidneys, then, of course, we obviously know they excrete things. Let's say that the kidney. Let's see, draw a picture of the kidney. The kidney takes these materials out of the same thing here. Let's see. I need a different color pen. And kidney takes these things out of the blood. Blood, urea, nitrogen. Creatine comes from muscle metabolism. The kidney really excretes it. And uric acid. And so the kidney here takes those, so this is in the blood, and takes those out of the blood and then excretes them in the urine. Normally. So let's have kidney failure. Got kidney failure, shoot. So is the kidney now taking all of that out of the blood and excreting in the urine? Well, some, but not all of it, not enough. And so these things end up building up in the blood. And they show up on a chem panel. Take a chem panel and the person's got elevated BUN, elevated creatinine, elevated uric acid. Oh, they have a kidney disease. The kidney's not excreting those things like it should be. Get it? Okay. Here's another scenario. And this is going to help you folks totally with your extra credit there. Don't forget about your other credit, your regular credit. Study for your regular credit too. So let's say now, so those were scenarios where we would find something in the blood high levels. Let's look at a scenario where we would find that something in the blood is low levels. Let's say the liver produces the blood proteins. Let's see, how can I do this? Liver cells produces blood proteins. Normally, one of the, like alpha and beta globulins and albumin too. And albumin is one of the substances that's on a chem panel. Let's say something's wrong with the liver again. We have the same things again. We've got hepatitis, we have liver cancer, or we have cirrhosis of the liver. We have one of those that's damaging our hepatocytes, our liver cells. So now not all the cells are functional. Not all the cells are producing these blood proteins like alpha beta globulins and albumin. So it's not making much of those. So what are those? What's albumin going to be in the blood in your chem panel? It's going to be high or low. Be low because the liver's unable to make it. So you're going to find a low albumin level on your chem panel. You're going to find a low total protein on your chem panel because your liver's not able to make them. So then, all right, then do they have cirrhosis or cancer or hepatitis? And we did this already. Hepatitis, they're probably going to have a fever if it's active hepatitis. Any one of these could cause jaundice. Jaundice is just to what degree you have your liver disease. If you have a extensive liver disease, severe, long-term, jaundice could develop. You may not at the beginning. You may not ever have jaundice with hepatitis till the end. But you've probably had an exposure that you might know about, or a potential exposure to hepatitis that you. Cancer, that's going to have to be diagnosed by a scan. The cirrhosis, you don't have the fever, and if it's extensive cirrhosis, you have jaundice, but maybe not, mostly probably not. Extensive, you do, but you've got alcohol abuse or some kind of drug abuse of some sort. Alcohol or drug abuse, chronic. Okay. So now I asked you in class these people, they have damaged liver, right? So they don't make the blood protein, so they're going to be in low levels. Then I asked the class as a whole, I said, well, what else would they have on their chem panel? What else would show on this person's chem panel? Besides low albumin, low total protein, what else would show? What else shows damaged liver? Those elevated liver enzymes, right? The AST, ALT, and alkaline phosphatase. Those would be coming out, they're being damaged by these diseases. They're coming out of the cell, so they would be in high levels in the blood. So you look at this chem panel, you see ALT they're high levels, and you see total protein and albumin low levels. Oh, for sure, they've got liver disease. Then you just have to figure out which one. Follow me? Doctor, huh? The questions will be easy. They're not going to be medical school questions. They'll probably be obvious. Just know some of this right here. It'll be obvious. How about this? What if, let's see. Okay, let's say we have protein in our blood, right? Blood proteins. Blood proteins. Let's see. The kidney normally does not excrete the blood proteins. It keeps them one of its functions is to keep those blood proteins in the blood. So what if the kidney is damaged? the filter, it's a filter. The filter, the mesh work like filtering mechanism is all damaged. There's holes in it. So things are going through it, from the blood out into the urine that shouldn't be going through, like blood cells, or proteins that are big that shouldn't be going through that filtration membrane. They shouldn't be going through there. They should be staying in the blood. The kidney should be keep them in the blood, but it's not because it's damaged. It's got glomerulonephritis, or it's got kidney failure. It's got bruised kidney, or it's got cancer, or too much alcohol too. So what's happening now is that kidney is then, instead of keeping the blood proteins in the blood, it's losing those blood proteins. Where do they end up? Into the urine, right? That's where kidney puts everything into the urine, right? So they end up in the urine. So now we're not into the urinalysis thing, but if you were to check their urine, they would have high protein in their urine. But we haven't got there yet. So what, in regards to the Chem panel, what would they have? The blood proteins are being lost into the urine when they normally would not be lost in the urine. So the blood proteins, the total protein on the Chem panel would be low, right? Because they're losing the protein when they shouldn't be. They're losing it out of the blood. It's going through the kidneys and out into the urine when it should not. It should be staying in the blood. That's what would show on your Chem panel. And you would also have your other kidney indications, kidney failure indications. Let's see, what are kidney enzymes? That was, we gave you those, the BUN, well, they're not enzymes, but the BUN and the uric acid, and so forth. Okay, so that goes along with the rest of the question is going to say, something about a person has kidney failure. I'm not sure what I put in the question there. Help you out with that, with your diagnosis. What about the CBC? And I didn't talk about it today, we first talked about, a lot of it talks about anemia. Well, you have CBC, red blood cell counts are low, hemoglobin counts are low, it's anemia. How do you find anemia? Well, that's an easy one, huh? For anemia, in your CBC, your complete blood count, that's your formed elements. It's not your enzymes and things, that's your formed elements. That's your white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. White blood cells, red blood cells, platelets. Anemia then would be like this. You would have a low, how would you find that? Well, you would have a low red blood cell count. You would have a low hemoglobin count. Then there was those MCV and MCV, mean corpuscle volume. That's the average size of your corpuscle is your red blood cell. Mean average red blood cell volume size. That equals the size of the red blood cell. Maybe the size of the red blood cells are small and they don't hold enough hemoglobin. So your MCV would be low. It would be a small red blood cell, abnormally small red blood cell size, abnormally low MCV reading. MCH, mean corpuscle hemoglobin content. Mean corpuscle hemoglobin content. That's the fullness of red blood cells. Maybe the cells just aren't full enough, and that's why you're anemic. Maybe they're not big enough, that's why you're anemic. Maybe they're not full enough, that's why you're anemic. Maybe there's not enough of them, that's why you're anemic. It's probably it. Let's see, the doctor's got all this here. They can tell what kind of anemia. I mean, is it too few cells? Is it that you just don't have enough hemoglobin? Is your cells too small? Is your cells just not full? You're not making the hemoglobin for some reason? That kind of thing. What was a hematocrit? We did that in class. That was when we spun our blood in the centrifuge, and we got about, let's see, 45% was the formed elements, and 55% about was a plasma. And we separated them. That's a hematocrit. So if you do a hematocrit, you see that it's only 37%. What do you got? Anemia. Another anemia. It's another way it's just another way to find anemia. You have a low red blood cell count, so your hematocrit is going to be a low percentage. So if that was like 35%, anemia. Okay. And then let's just do a little bit on the white blood cells, and I'll zing out those extra. You get an extra grade here, extra higher grade. The white blood cell counts. Remember, if it was, and there's way more to this than what I'm presenting. But if you had elevated neutrophilic count, neutrophils, they combat bacteria. So you got a person with fever, sore throat, and you got an elevated neutrophil count. It's elevated neutrophil. It must be bacteria. They got a sore throat. It's their tonsils. So it must be strep throat. What if they had a fever and they had a sore throat? They didn't have the elevated neutrophil count. Then it must not be bacteria, so it must be a viral sore throat. So now you're looking at what are all the viruses that cause, what are the 1,000 viruses that cause a sore throat? So you're looking at all the other neutrophils, lymphocytes. They can be elevated in cancer. Certain kinds of cancer, they elevate. Chronic infection of some sort. Chronic infection of some, it could be viral or bacterial. They're just battling this infection over time. Body's trying to get rid of this infection over time. It elevates the lymphocyte count. There's other things too, you guys, but I'm going to simplify this. The monocytes, elevated. Well, that could be chronic infection too, but it could also be, if it's a certain kind, if you look at the monocytes and they are of a certain type, they're kind of an abnormal monocyte. Mononucleosis. So you got this person with a fever and a sore throat and, the sweats and the body aches and all those flu symptoms. But they have this elevated monocyte count. And they're the kind of, and you look at them, they're like these weird monocytes. Mononucleosis, it's a virus. Elevated eosinophils. Remember, they combat parasites and allergies. So you've got an individual with elevated eosinophil count. They've got digestive problems. They've got a fever, maybe, probably have a fever. This person's got elevated eosinophils. They have a fever. They have digestive problems. It seems like they've got some kind of digestive parasite. They picked up a parasite. They just were they were just in Africa for a month. They just got back and they've got these, they've got parasites of some sort. Here, you could pick up Giardia. You've been camping for a month, a week, a couple of weeks of camping. Drank the water. Giardia. Or you have a person, well, okay, they don't have a fever, they're not sick, but they've got all these allergy symptoms, besides they've got elevated eosinophils and they've got, they're runny and their eyes are red and runny and itchy and their nose is running and they're sneezing and maybe they have some asthma. This is going to help you to indicate an allergy, and a severe allergy would raise that up. What I got left then? Basophils. Basophils generate inflammation, so it's hard to make conclusions with basophils. They generate inflammation, which is something that combats everything. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint why a basophil would be elevated. Okay. That'll help you. All right. I've watched all your videos for your lab report review videos. Watch those while you have your lab report right in front of you, just like you do in class. Correct your answers. Then plug it into your head, too. You have to plug it into your head. And then come on Tuesday. Email me if you have a question, okay? Thanks for listening.